Hi there, my name is Andrew McElrath, and I'm a certified biofield tuner. I was communicating with a fellow tuner who's a paramedic, and we were just talking about how important it is for people in roles of service to be able to access their own self-care. And it really got me thinking about wanting to create a tuning and offer a tuning for folks that are in a role of service. So if you are showing up for other people as an educator, as a healthcare provider, as a first responder, as any kind of caregiver in any way, even if you're showing up to other beings on the planet like animals or the earth herself, this is for you, because it's so important for these folks that are around us, and if that's you, that are showing up in service, to know that it's important to take time and steward your own wellness and your own vitality and wellness. So that's what this tuning is. If you're new to the work, a biofield tuning works with tuning forks on the body and the electromagnetic field around it to introduce coherence. Our biological system knows what to do with that input, and you can also tune intentions, spaces, and projects. So I've done a few other videos, and so this is going to be in sort of a similar format. I'm going to use this lovely piece of rose quartz that is really supportive for self-love and compassion. And we're going to be using this as a placeholder, as a center point for our intention. A couple things to know about biofield tuning. While we're working on an intention together, you may have experiences and notice energy move in your body. And in that way, it's important to know that biofield tuning is intended for folks in general good health. So while this isn't like a traditional tuning on the body, there's some contraindications that are important to become aware of. If you're a woman who's pregnant, you have a pacemaker, or you're working with a terminal health condition such as cancer, this recording is probably not for you. I'm going to list a link below in the description so that you can find out more about those contraindications. If you're working with heavy machinery or driving, please listen to this recording later. So those are just general sort of safety points that are important to acknowledge. Biofield tuning works with the energy and the intention that's moving through the sound, and that's connected with the water in your body. So it's important to drink plenty of water before listening and then also after. And just know that things can move. So if you're noticing emotions show up, or you have a memory or an awareness that has an intense emotional awareness, I'm going to invite everyone to remember to breathe through their body and imagine that as you're exhaling, that exhale is going through the bottom of your feet or the base of your spine to allow that to move through. All right. While we're tuning in intention, sometimes things can show up in the body. I really approach this with a sense of curiosity and openness, so I'm never sure exactly what's going to show up. If you're listening to this recording after the fact, which everyone will be to some degree, just know that I'm doing so with the intention of including everyone that will ever listen to this. So it's okay. You're connecting with it in the ether outside of time and space, and it has like a non-local, non-linear way in the ways that other energy medicine works as well. So what we're going to do first is connect with everyone's Earth star and find out where that's at and kind of work with any adjustment that needs to happen, and we'll drop that in to get everyone nice and grounded, because we're working with the electromagnetic system of the collective signal of everyone. We want to make sure that everyone's grounded before we get into the experience of service and showing up for other people. So we're just going to start in folks. So I'm going to invite everyone to get real comfy. If you choose to lie down, that's great, because you're being really receptive. I'm presenting this in a video, so there's a visual component, but by no means do you need to watch me to participate in this. So it's great if you can listen to it and just notice what shows up and be really receptive. So We're just going to start on in and see where everyone's at, all right? So this feels really heavy. Feels like witnessing people in pain. Witnessing pain in general. And suffering. So I invite everyone to breathe and just notice that while you're showing up for people or beings or the planet and acknowledging that suffering that may be going on, that it's okay to back up and observe that as a witness and not necessarily take all of that on. I think if you're an empathic individual, which if you're watching this, you probably are, there can sometimes be a tendency to become so close to that experience that we take it on. And that it doesn't necessarily need to be the way that we show up, and I'm going to invite everyone to notice that might not be particularly sustainable. Yeah. I'm noticing a lot of movement in the heart, and grief can sometimes live, particularly on the left side of the heart here. So, and then in the throat too as well. So, folks, I'm going to go in here into this Earth star where it's at with a 144 fork and a crystal here, and just sort of let that unwind a little bit. And again, it's not necessarily your job to hold that pain for other people. And in fact, I'm going to invite everyone to notice that for you to show up in the way that you are for folks, that actually might get in the way of you being able to be fully present in the way that you might want to be. There you go. Yeah, I'm also noticing it's interesting, like pulling in the stress response so that the adrenal glands are all jacked up here because of managing crisis. So for those of you that are first responders or working in emergency situations, emergency rooms, I'm going to invite you just to allow that breathe through and let that move through you. And I'm hearing in here, a lot of you know better, but I'm noticing that it catches up. There you go. This is a 528, so it introduces the original sort of blueprint or the reset of where we want to be as biological and energetic organisms. There you go. I'm also noticing in here in the signal that a lot of folks are needing breaks, which makes sense. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean a physical shift or a vacation in that way. It may just mean a timeout. So, all right, this is pretty stock. To me, it also feels like some people are operating out of lack of choice. They feel like they don't have a choice. And, if you're at home with a loved one and you're the only one, I'm going to invite you to start to consider how you can ask for help in whatever way that might be. If that's other people that are around you, identifying some solutions. If this is your day job and you're having a really rigorous schedule, try to find some solutions here and try to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of wisdom to notice that you need help. There you go. Yeah, some of these roles that people are playing are really stuck in place. So there we go. All right, folks, so I'm going to slowly move this down. I'm going to invite everyone to notice what you're showing up in your body. If nothing is, that's okay too. I'm going to invite everyone to notice and affirm for everyone that they're worthy of being grounded. That you're worthy of showing up for yourself. And it seems like a really commonly used analogy when we used to fly on planes more, and you used to look at the card, the safety card, and the parent or the mom would put her oxygen mask on first before she put it on her kiddos. There you go. Yeah, folks, no one is losing out by you being grounded and settled. Okay? Everyone's winning in that. Okay? It almost feels like I'm noticing some pressure shifts in my ears a little bit, which is interesting. And if whatever you're noticing, there's just information in there for you. There you go. All right, so now this is in the Earth Star. Wow, a lot of you are needing some rest, quality rest, uninterrupted sleep, the kind of sleep where your body's able to restore fully and totally. Very deep, deep sleep. Most kind of like hibernation sleep. There you go. And honestly, the state of the world, where things are at right now, is pretty wild. So I think we all could use some pretty good nap time. That said, it doesn't mean like depression sleep, right, where you don't have to get out of bed. Interesting. So if some of you need to change up your sleeping situation, if you sleep with a partner, and you're noticing that you're kind of absorbing or your sleep's being disrupted by what's going on with them, it's okay to say, hey, I'm going to, it might be a big trip in your relationship, but you might just say, hey, I'm going to do a little experiment and see what it's like to sleep in the guest room tonight and just see what happens. It's okay. And just treat it as an experiment. It's not personal. It's just sort of an awareness or an option that you might want to consider. There you go. And also, I'm really focused on sleep here. Notice what you're bringing in your awareness around 30 minutes before you go to sleep. So if you're fiddling with your phone right before you go to bed, you might want to rethink how that's working for you. There you go. Great. Nice. Okay, folks, we're going to work more with opening up to your sun star. Just going to try this a little differently this time when we work with connecting to source at the end. So usually when we tune someone, an opening process would be doing the Earth star and the sun star. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So we'll get that in there. It's just going to be a little towards the end. So when I work with tuning a project or an intention, I'll work with the 4 quadrants, and this just is what shows up. So I'm not necessarily going to assign anything to it. We're just going to see what's here. If you need to move around or go to the restroom as we're doing this, go ahead and do that. Your hologram's going to stay here with your intention, so we're all good to do that. And so I work with the directions, so we're just going to see what's going on the east side first, and then just move around each side. Okay, so what I'm hearing here, and you might notice the quality of the fork, it's almost feels authoritarian, feels like a have to, feels like obligation. And for some of you that are in service as an employment agreement, you actually might have a contract. And for some of you in relationships, it might be an agreement energetically or karmically. And they're equally as important. So, and with animals and plants and the earth too. So anywhere where you're running an agreement or contract and it has a restrictive, intense quality about it, I'm going to invite you to shift your perspective with this, in that rather than it wearing on you as a burden, to experience it as a choice, as a want to versus have to. Okay? Because when we're existing or doing work as a want to, it has a completely different frequency. And even if it's really challenging in the moment or moments over time, that it's moving you towards a place of alignment and integrity, which at the end of the game, if you want to call it a game, is a positive. There you go. Is a good thing. And all right, so we're going to go in here with a 528 and a crystal here. And anywhere where this contract is not in integrity, or this agreement is not in integrity, and I'm thinking of, when maybe things change, when contracts magically change all of a sudden, or you can feel like, ooh, that's not what we agreed to, that this gets shifted and moved back into alignment or released. In whatever way that needs to happen, okay? So also making space where agreements can set you free versus bind you. I think we have enough binding agreements right now. There we go. There you go. And I'm also hearing just to acknowledge and notice when those agreements are done. And you can kind of feel it. And honor that feeling when they're done. And sometimes, agreements can be in relationships where marriages or partnerships dissolve when it's just super clear they're done. There you go. And I'm also just want to acknowledge that for some of you, this might mean where, your loved one crossed over and, left their body. And be okay with releasing that agreement, in your own time. But you don't need to hold on to it. There you go. Or hold on to them. There you go. Nice. So that's settling down. There's definitely a sense of, acceptance, relief. There we go. Yeah, what drops in is around making peace, resolution, completion. Nice. It's okay to acknowledge if you're done with an agreement. I just don't want to do it anymore. There we go. Okay, folks, so I'm going to drop this into where it wants to be here. What drops in for me is to notice where the release of the agreement is the most compassionate path. There you go. Folks, keep breathing. Sometimes when tuning happens, we'll kind of get in our head a little bit and start thinking about things, which is important, but I notice sometimes when we do that, sometimes we'll forget to breathe. There you go. Great. Okay. All right, folks, we're going to move to the south side. So I'm going to work over here, but my intention just kind of moved it around a wee bit. So it's so interesting. This sounds like hanging out in a rock in a hard place. Conflict. It reminds me of knowing. Wow, it's almost like administering medicine or pharmaceuticals. That are creating side effects that are almost worse than the condition itself. So I'm not talking about anything specific. I don't know where this applies to, who it might apply to. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to invite you to notice how you're feeling, if this is showing up for you. Notice that sometimes those drugs are actually to alleviate pain, even though the bigger picture might be a little bit more intense. And to notice where your agreement or role is including whatever this is. So, how do I say this? If you're performing a role, that dynamic might allow you to back up and acknowledge that you've agreed to play a role and you're honoring that, and also noticing that you're taking in information and awareness that's allowing you to move into greater integrity to yourself. Sometimes we have to slip out of that alignment to notice and grow into a greater sense of our own coherence in our actions and our words. Yeah. One is for everyone to grant yourself grace. Be compassionate with yourself. There's more than enough criticism and brutality going on right now. More than enough. So you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Being honest with yourself and acknowledging where things might want to shift for you is great. And moving towards that is important. But I sometimes notice that, we run a story where creation or source or the divine has this sort of authority of a judgment. And in my experience, source is really neutral. Like, they don't really care what shows up. It's more about balance than anything else. Yeah, we can notice when we're taking on the burden of the world. And just to notice that there's space for you to take care of your immediate sphere. That has an implication in the broader landscape, but it's okay just to take care of your immediate business. There we go. I invite everyone to notice what's going on in your body if you're real sensitive. There we go. Interesting. Sometimes people will notice a real difference between the right and the left side throughout their entire body. If that's going on for you, that's just sort of information to notice. There we go. Folks, you're doing great. I'm really grateful you showed up to listen to this and experience it and being open and really supporting yourself, noticing that you gotta take care of yourself first. There we go. Great. We're gonna drop that in. Nice. Great. Perfect. All right, folks, we're going to move on. So we were at the south. We're going to go visit the west side here and see what's going on over on this quadrant. I mean, this just feels like there's some days I want to walk away. I just want to get up and walk away. So if you're running that level of fatigue, that might be a sign to switch up your patterns a little bit. Or, reevaluate whether this is working or not and what options you have. Burnout and fatigue seem to be part of the dominant pattern of service work. And it's okay to notice that you're maybe at your end and to consider your options to take a break. And I'm immediately hearing, well, I can't, right, because I'm the only person for this person. Circumstances might not allow for someone to come back in. So for some of you, you're stuck. It feels like you're stuck, kind of what we were talking about before. So figure out what you need to do to take a break. And I'm saying even if that's for an hour or two, to almost transport yourself into another state of consciousness, whether that's meditation or taking a walk. Take more breaks. Back up. Notice that most agreements aren't forever. Over many lifetimes. Sometimes eventually they release, or you can come to an agreement to release. It's a huge ask for anyone to take on caregiving exclusively for anyone. I don't think when we were operating as tribes or communities in many ways, that was actually an expectation. We really actually had others to support us in that. There we go. Interesting. Okay, so sometimes ancestral information shows up in these tunings, and so this just dropped in. To the degree that you're open and available to connecting with your ancestors, those that you know of and those that you don't, I'm going to invite you to pull on some non-physical support here. Sometimes that just shows up as closing your eyes and asking for help. Prayer doesn't need to be within a context of a specific religion. It can just be, hey, I need some support in the non-physical for my strength, for my stability, for wisdom in this. And if you think about all of the stuff that your ancestors went through for you to be here, that's a lot. And I'm thinking a lot, what got some of them through was knowing that you would be here. without even knowing who you are, you know? There we go. Oh. Whew. Wow, tingles, folks. Keep breathing. All right, so yeah, for some of you, they just kind of dropped in. So you might know who these folks are, you might not, but just notice if you can feel some tingles or warm fuzzies. Sometimes people get cold. There we go. But I just want to witness for you that none of us are alone in this right now. We might be not around each other as much as we would prefer, and there might be a lot of disconnection, but I think it's also creating space for us to feel connected in ways we might not be used to. There we go. And also witness that your ancestors have wisdom. You know, you might be encountering stuff they didn't, but there's also, within the memories of your ancestors, there's probably some really good wisdom for navigating really challenging times, including humor. There you go. You're doing great, folks. All right, we're going to drop this in. Wow. Okay, so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up. And one of the things that I'm just noticing here is we don't always get those thank yous. And that could be because people aren't available. Maybe they didn't have time to say thank you. Maybe they weren't conscious to say thank you. But I want to say thank you to you. I want to express gratitude that you showed up and that you do show up. There you go. Great. All right. All right, so we're going to move this over to the north side now and just see what's going on over here. Wow. Okay, so this is about these roles not being valued as much as they could be. Okay, so woo! There's a lot of emotion here. Major stuff's happening in the throat. It's very pretty intense. So I'm going to go near the 528 crystal. If you need to move around or make any noise, do so. There's a real strong feeling of being under-acknowledged, underappreciated. There's anger here, frankly. So I'm going to invite the space for everyone and in the collective that we really begin to honor caregivers as much as we honor and glorify warriors. And I know that, that might rub up against some belief systems we have collectively, and I think they need to. I think that, I really want to invite space for mothers to be treated with the same level of respect as, people who are in the military and use guns and things like that. We really need to honor them equally, okay? And maybe put more emphasis on support and caregiving as we do to, protectors and, violent acts. I think that's an okay thing to ask for. And I think that's an evolved thing to ask for. Yeah, there's a really strong signal of observing senseless violence and also self-violence. So let's see if we can unwind these patterns that require intervention, you know, so that maybe we can have, people can have their energy put in a different place other than doing the cleanup for patterns that might be outdated. And to honor that your anger is coming from an okay place, like to really sit with it. That's information. And knowing that, you know, not a lot of us really enjoy hanging out in anger. Some people thrive on it, but I think for most people, it's not a feeling we like to hang out in very much. There you go. So folks, move around, if you will, if you want to, and just shake that off. Let that move through. I'm just picking up, I am picking up first responders in here, for sure. There you go. And anyone in an emergency room, anyone that's dealing with triage, any of that. There you go. Nice. I'm not sure why. I don't need to know why. If you have animals or dogs or kitties at home, and they're like the most pure form of accessible love that you have, I just really want to honor that they love you and that they are in service to you too. Aw. Wow. I'm noticing a lot of emotion showing up here in that connection. I feel like some people may go home and cry, and that their animals are the ones that support them in transmuting everything that shows up in work. So bless your animals. Lots of gratitude to your animals and you as their human. Folks, you're doing really good. I'm really, really, really grateful you showed up. Okay. This is feeling really good. We're going to drop this into the center. Great. Okay, this is sounding really, really good. What I'm going to do now is use a 528. And when I work on projects like this, I like to work with the figure 8 or an infinity symbol. And I do this both in both vectors, so horizontally and vertically. And this is just to integrate everything, because those were a lot of things that we want to really create space for all of the aspects of this intention and tuning to really sort of integrate and line up. And then we're going to connect all this to source, and in the process sort of continue the process for opening up this kind of central channel and making space for you to connect with source. Okay, so here we go. And I'm just noticing as I do this that there's spaces for you to be fully integrated for all of these parts and aspects and components of your role of service and your sustainability and longevity and vitality to support one another, right? To not fragment them. You know, my sense is that integration is so important right? Because we're whole beings. What's going on at home is going to show up at work, and what's going on at work shows up at home. Like, we're all a big full circle. So just to notice and honor that, like, oh, well, maybe there's a little housekeeping that needs to happen there. Maybe a little shift over there is going to affect everything. Okay? There you go. And I'm actually going to use this fork directly on this stone to just see what shows up. Folks, keep breathing. There's something moving up at the crown, interestingly enough. Okay, so there's something stuck here, and it just feels like there's something blocking this sort of internal recognition of your own service. So anywhere where you're kind of holding a story where you're feeling, it's kind of connected to that sense of feeling undervalued, okay? Let's rewrite this completely. That the story of caregiving in humanity can permanently and totally shift. I know that's a big call ask, but I think that we need to go there. This is where we're going as a species. It's time to acknowledge the value of nurturing and teaching and healing people. That has to show up as a real thing for us to survive right now. So if you want to, folks, put your hands on your heart. Or anywhere else on your body that you're feeling called to do so. I'm putting the Lumerian right on this stone here, this rose quartz, because it's feeling a little stuck. All right, so we're going to shift this up. This is what we do when we find sticky spots. Okay, so I'm going to use the 89 and the 144. And when I use these stones on, or these forks on stones in remote sessions, sometimes they have a real palpable physical effect for folks. And these two forks, the difference between the two frequencies are the phi ratio, or the sacred mean, and they really affect sort of the ideal proportions that are found in all physical things, so all forms of life on the planet. There you go. So I'm going to invite everyone to notice and honor that their service is an expression of the divine and of Source. And it's part of that picture and is an important part of it. There we go. There we go. Oh, great job, folks. You've done great. That was. Whew. Okay, so we're going to check in. Interesting. This is kind of muted still, so that's okay. I'm going to go in with a 417. Sometimes this is a real gentle one for love. There's just a ton of heat moving on the above here on the crown. There we go. Aww. I just really want to honor and acknowledge where you learned to nurture, heal, and support. Wherever you were taught that, I really invite you to notice and remember where you were taught that, whether it was from a parent or a caregiver or a teacher, whoever that was. So sweet. There we go, folks. Whew. Great job. What I'm going to do is do a 417 and a 528 together. And this has a really beautiful sort of combination when they're done together. Okay, those sound great. Folks, I'm going to do a 528 just back in the stone, get you all back into your body. Acknowledging all of the support that showed up in this session for you in whatever way, shape, or form. And just invite all of the energy and the space that I'm working with in the ether with you, and also your physical space to kind of go back to neutral. We moved around a lot of stuff. Okay, great. So I want to remind everyone to drink lots of water, to obviously engage your self-care on a new level, and just remind you that you can ask for support in whatever way that shows up or it's available to you to, break up your situation if you need to, so that you can create more space and have more support show up, to reevaluate your agreements, to see where you can negotiate those if you can, and just see if you need to make some bigger changes so that you can continue to take care of yourself. Thank you for liking this video. If you're called to do so, leaving a comment, and I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I want to do more of these videos to support you. There's more information below in the description box. And again, I want to thank you for showing up for the world, for humanity, and for the planet. Okay? Big, big love to everyone. And take great care of yourselves, okay? All right. Bye-bye.